Welcome to Belfast Wheel. My name is Jonathan Watson, and today's guest is Paulina Tenner. Paulina is an entrepreneur, angel investor, TEDx speaker, and co-founder of Grandtree. Paulina is also a seed investor and a startup mentor. She is also featured as a keynote speaker at technology conferences worldwide. She has been interviewed by the BBC, the Financial Times, and many more. Paulina is also an experienced performer, performance arts, and burlesque. Her new book, Laid Bare: What the Business Leader Learned from the Stripper, is available for pre-order and will be out early next year. So, Paulina, thanks so much for coming on.
It's a pleasure, Jonathan. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
No, thank you. Thanks very much. And sorry it took so long to get you on. Just to give us a bit of your own background, can you tell us a wee bit about your early days or your early life?
Yeah, of course. So I grew up in Poland. I have a fantastic family. I'm still in touch with my parents pretty much every day, even though I live in London and I'm married to a Swiss guy. I kind of really appreciate my Polish roots. So I'm hoping to get there for Christmas, actually,
Excellent.
unless the new wave of COVID prevents me. Yeah, so I grew up in a city called Krakow, which is in the south of Poland. It's quite a old medieval city, actually 1,000 years old, and it's got beautiful monuments and lots of students and a really cool arty scene and nightlife as well.
Yeah. My wife, she's from Oswiecim. She's from Poland. So yeah,
Oh, nice.
Krakow. Yeah, it's beautiful city. So it is. Um, did you always then want to get into business, or was it something you kind of just drifted into? How did that kind of come about working in
No,
the
I
business?
really didn't know. I now recognize that I've always had quite a few traits of my character, like getting things done, being quite quick and quite being able to multitask. But I didn't ever think I would end up in business. It wasn't until I got an Erasmus scholarship to study at University College London that I moved here in 2006, and I started meeting quite a lot of people from the startup scene, at meetups, sipping beer, chatting away, eating pizza. And I just thought, this is such a fantastic crowd. I really appreciate people that think they can actually make a difference and change the world, even, or a given industry at least. And I started networking. I found my first business partner who from whom I learned quite a lot about business. And then I started Grandtree with my then boyfriend, now husband. So yeah, I kind of fell into it, kind of life guided him in that direction, I think.
And then, how did you end up becoming a burlesque dancer slash stripper? How did that come about?
Sure. So maybe 2 or 3 years into the development of my current business, Grandtree, I was feeling really depleted, and I was feeling like, I was mostly in my head, and I didn't really have a creative outlet at all. And like that kind of creative, passionate, juicy side of me was dying away. And I felt really frustrated about it. And then one day, again, by chance, I saw a fragment of a burlesque show rehearsal. And I just thought, heck, there must be a way one becomes a showgirl. I'm going to find out how to do it. Like, maybe I can do it. So I found a burlesque school in London. I signed up. I did a few courses. I started performing. It ended up being one of the greatest adventures in my life, actually.
Yeah. And what's like someone who's kind of not totally aware, maybe someone who's not too sure. What is burlesque? What is that itself? If someone
Yes,
can,
it's an art form where it's a little bit like a sketch or a performance, but a short one. So typically it's like you perform to one song or two songs, and typically there is like a artful teasing kind of striptease involved in that, but it doesn't have to be. And it's typically done to music. There's a little bit of a storyline. So you invent a character, that character then kind of something happens to them or goes through some sort of transformation. And it's funny as well. So if you've got some jokes or stage gags, that really works. If you've got some audience interaction, even better. And typically it's about kind of being fabulous and girly and kind of clad in sequins and lace and lots of glitter, and it's like very very kind of female friendly. So like burlesque clubs are full of women as well as men, so it's not like kind of classic striptease in strip clubs, which are kind of usually kind of reserved for men. And this is more like an art form, which is performed in cabaret clubs and burlesque venues. It's just like fun, light-hearted, playful entertainment.
Okay, excellent. And what was your first performance like? Was it? I would imagine it would be quite nervous or nerve-wracking. What was that like?
It was, so I was already a public speaker, so I was kind of used to being on stages and talking to people from stages, so that made it a bit easier. I was a little bit like kind of excited, so it was somewhere in between kind of nerves and excitement. But is actually a fabulous experience. So I prepared really well. I practiced my act a lot. I was singing in it as well. So because I'm a singer, I sing in all of my acts. It was like a graduation night for the ladies from my burlesque course. So I was kind of part of the graduation night. God, it was so much fun. It was so much fun, and like it really landed very well with the audience. I think I was one of the best acts that night. And when I got off stage, I just had this like massive hit of endorphins. I literally felt like I was on cloud nine, like so exhilarated. It was just one of the happiest moments in my life, I think. I just literally felt like I nailed it. It really went well. And it was just a culmination of like months of preparation and effort and anything else. Like I've never done a marathon, but I imagine that that's what it might be like. You know, you prepare for so long and then you do something and you do it well, and it just feels amazing.
Excellent. And during that time when you were obviously deciding to go along this road and prepare for this, did you get much friction from colleagues, family, or anything? Was there any kind of like resistance in that quarter?
Yeah, good question. So I got some from my mum.
Okay.
She's like, "Oh, that's like a glorified porn star," and I'm like, "Mum, it's nothing like it. It's completely different." But my mum does not like the fact that I take my clothes off on stage, even if it's like in an arty, playful way. She doesn't appreciate it. My husband, he is super happy. He's like, if you're happy, if you're like tapping into your creativity, if you're feeling more alive, brilliant. And he went to a lot of burlesque shows with me, sometimes, helped me with the sound setup, sometimes, was the so-called stage bunny. So that's the person that collects the clothes and the items that have been taken off and brings them off stage. He's been super, super supportive, and so have been my friends. And actually, even I got one fairly prestigious kind of work gig out of this. So I did this TEDx talk in 2014 where I decided to, for the first time, reveal my kind of secret identity to a kind of semi-business audience. So I was kind of talking to them as a business person, and I had images on the backdrop behind me of me as a burlesque stripper. And someone saw that talk and later invited me to be part of a Institution of Engineering and Technology policy panel. So like kind of a fairly senior panel of experts that advises government on future policy, etc. So that was amazing surprise. Like I never thought that would have happened.
Yeah, it's amazing. Sometimes how you do one thing can lead into something else completely unexpected. With what did you find it difficult to balance the two roles? Obviously, I imagine you run businesses, you're probably pretty much on the clock quite a lot. Did you find that difficult juggling the two? Um,
Yeah, so I actually found it quite satisfying. So up until that TEDx talk where I kind of revealed myself, so it was like a coming out ceremony, I liked the fact that I led a bit of a double life, that I was somebody else during the day and somebody else at night. And if anything, it was energizing, the fact that I was doing something completely different. That was kind of fulfilling me creatively, that was like giving me so much satisfaction, and that was just there just for me. So I wasn't doing that to make money, to earn a profit, to kind of help other people pay their mortgages. It was about me and my fun and my creativity and my enjoyment. So it really worked. Plus burlesque, is done in evenings, after hours, weekends. So I wouldn't say it was kind of, plus I never kind of intended to do it as a full-time thing, or, some of my friends are still pursuing burlesque as a full-time gig, and they make money from it. So there's this pressure associated with it. For me, I just took gigs that I really wanted to be part of. Yeah, it just, if anything, it helps me having something. And I actually encourage founders and leaders I speak to these days to have something just for them, which is just about creativity, enjoyment, kind of getting your creative juices flowing. It really helps you as a leader as well.
yeah, because I mean, today I was talking to a friend earlier on. And we were talking about the state of where things are at the moment, especially about the work environment. We don't really create anymore. I mean, if you think about it, we pretty much we go to work. Normally, it's on a computer. We don't create, or if we are participating in like a working environment, it's we're not creating for ourselves. We're creating work or doing work for somebody else. So did you find that by uh, saying yes, I'll do this show, and then preparing your routine, that kind of you felt really, obviously you probably would have felt very invested in your work, because you're like, this is mine, this is my creation. That be right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you that these days we are kind of from A to B. So most of us in our jobs, we have fairly defined roles. There's a fairly kind of defined set of tasks that we're performing. So there's not that much room for creativity, imagination, intuition. There's not much room for that, like what I talk about in my book, playful, like feminine side, because I think there are two sides to our leadership: the masculine, which is about doing, achieving, competitiveness, performance, drive, and the feminine or the yin side, which is about being, about intuition, about tuning into the moment, about presence, about values as well. So I think that we have somehow lost that element of ourselves in our working lives, at least. And I think we must do our best to reclaim it, to find that creativity, to find those opportunities to really be playful and have fun again,
Yeah,
because our
yeah,
lives are so serious, so dull sometimes, so repetitive.
yeah. I think at times it does. It feels like a hamster wheel. I think that's the one analogy here, or
Absolutely.
another probably more grim one I've heard was some people have described modern life like drowning. You're just treading water as long as you can before you go
Mhm.
under, and it's a bit grim. Um,
Yeah, totally, Graham.
yeah, but I can understand where people come from when they say that. Um, you mentioned you obviously learned a lot of lessons from your time as a burlesque dancer, um, that which helped you in earlier in your life. What were some of those? What were some of those lessons?
Sure. So as I said before, like before because there are those two sides to our leadership, I really learned to integrate my feminine side, so my intuition, being able to kind of tune into the moment, being able to surrender, being able to be a better listener, as opposed to constantly driving my agenda and my goals. I have really learned being comfortable with speaking out, so standing out, being on stage, you're really, really seen. particularly if you take your clothes off as a burlesque dancer. And I think you need to be prepared to be seen when you're in business, when you're a founder. You're kind of on a pedestal in a way. The world will hear and know about you, and you need to be comfortable with the fact that some people will love what you do, some people will be indifferent, and some people will criticize you for whatever reason, sometimes nothing to do with you. But they will not like the fact that you're successful, for example, or you're doing something that they wish they were doing secretly. So it kind of helped me being comfortable with being vulnerable, being open, being seen, helped me connect with my intuition, with my embodied kind of side. I used to be so much in my head, and it kind of helped me connect to the wisdom of my body. It helped my confidence massively. So once you've kind of stripped on stage and you've shown your naked ass to an audience, there's not that much that you will be afraid of in terms of like in business, in terms of approaching people, in terms of having those difficult conversations, or speaking to people that are much more senior than you in business and more experienced. So wow, there's just so much I could say on this topic. I mean, I would love for you listeners or viewers to check out my book. It's paulinatenner.com/book, and it's available for pre-orders. I would love to hear what you think. You know, there's a lot that I've learned as a dancer and integrated it into leadership, and I talk all about it in the book.
Yeah. Did you get, I know we already mentioned, or we talked about resistance from friends and family. Did you get much like negativity or kind of hostility from people that didn't know you that well? But when
I haven't really met, obviously when you put, acts, you film them and you put them out there on YouTube, some people will be like, oh, another one that wants to be Cleopatra but is not, or another one that's like trying to attract attention. And you're going to get some negativity from people that are just not forward thinking enough, and maybe prudish, or maybe feel that what you're doing is indecent for some reason or whatever else. But you need to focus on the applause that you're getting from the audience, on the confidence that it's giving you, on the beautiful things that you're attracting into your life, because you've got you're brave enough to do this.
Yeah. Was there, because I know in preparing for this, I think it was like a list of characters that Gavin's the publisher, in case anyone's wondering who Gavin is. Was there any particular, when you were preparing for your show, was there any characters or kind of role that you played that you enjoyed playing on a regular basis on stage, or was it just kind of general, if that makes sense? Like, was there any particular roles you thought, like you mentioned Cleopatra, was like kind of any like female icons in history you kind of thought, I would like to include her in the show as a representation?
Yeah, interesting one. So I haven't actually played, some of my friends had particular, Josephine Baker or somebody that they kind of portrayed in their acts. I had more like generic ideas. So at some point I was this businesswoman who kind of like is really ruthless and fires men left, right, and center, but like secretly longs to actually surrender and submit. So I was playing a businesswoman. There was one act where I was playing a female assassin, so like Nikita, somebody like that. There was one where I was like the last remaining superhero in the galaxy, and I was a female superhero. So I've never kind of reenacted a particular historic figure, but I kind of tapped into some like stereotypes or into some kind of generic ideas for. There was one when I was Catherine II Tsarina of Russia, because she was known to be like ruthless on one hand and like to have had many lovers, to so be quite sexual as well. So maybe that one, yeah.
How, if I could ask this question, maybe it sounds a bit of a silly question, but how would you describe your pre-stripper or pre-burlesque self to who you are now?
Yeah. So I used to be very much kind of in my mind, very thought and logic orientated, particularly in business. Um, I used to be, I think, more close-minded than I am right now. I used to be less embodied. I used to be kind of all about ambition, drive, go getter, achieve the most that you can. And right now I'm about kind of more about enjoying the moment and enjoying the process of achieving something other than just caring about getting to the finish line. So yeah, quite a lot's changed actually.
Yeah, and I suppose as I talked to Gareth Timmins a few episodes ago, and I suppose in a way the journey you kind of went on, you you gain, I suppose, insights that you can't really buy. You can't really, well, you can read about them in a book, but so unless you go through that kind of, I suppose, that kind of a journey, um, it brings out you learn valuable lessons that you can't really get from anywhere else because you've went through them. Would that be right as well?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I think that this kind of journey of really exploring your wilder side, which I think all of us have. So I'm not saying that everybody should do burlesque, but there's a little bit of wildness and rebelliousness in every one of us. And that kind of journey of exploring that side has got lots of gifts that it brings, and it's a beautiful adventure, definitely.
So you and your husband now you set up Grandtree. What
Hmm.
what is Grandtree and how did that come about?
Sure. So we are a company that of about 50 people now, and we help startups and scale ups in the field of technology to get government funding. So in the last 11 years, we have secured over 200 million
Oh,
pounds worth of government grants for our clients. So we've done quite well.
excellent.
And it's come about. So I used to be in business with somebody else before, and I was working with startups and entrepreneurs then. And I discovered that there's definitely, one of the top priorities for any founder is to get funding. But few of them actually know that there's a lot of free grant funding resources out there. And those of them who do rarely have the time and the patience to kind of pursue those applications and do a really good job, which you have to do to win. So that's when I kind of thought, okay, well, this seems to be a really interesting business opportunity. And I got involved in it. And yeah, it was tough at the beginning, like for any business owner, because we were completely unknown. We had an unknown brand. We had no experience, no testimonials, no track record. It was really tough at the beginning, but these days we've got a very recognized brands amongst tech startups in London, at least, even though we work like throughout the UK. And it's kind of really satisfying to be working with those amazing, innovative, disruptive business founders who are really making a difference in industries that they work in.
Do you, do you use do you go out to people or do you pretty much do people come to you? What way is it kind of
Both,
work? Both,
both.
okay.
Yeah.
And with just for anyone who's maybe in that position as a startup, what's the kind of the most common mistakes a startup would make that you've seen, and what kind of, I suppose, what would be the number one piece of advice you would give to someone to start correctly or start properly, if there is such a thing?
Yeah, yeah. So I don't see many startup founders really studying their audience or their target market before they kind of create a product or a service. And I think that's absolutely key to be really aware of who your clients are, who your future audience will be, what is their pain, what is their need, how can you best solve it in such a way that they'll happily part with their money to, have that problem fixed. So be really deeply, intimately aware of your target audience's kind of issues, problems, what they're looking for, and then things will become a lot easier. Yeah. And I think losing focus is another one. So a lot of people that I've known over the years in the startup scene aren't focused enough on one particular thing for a long enough period of time to really make it a success, but get distracted way too easily.
Like new shiny object syndrome kind of thing.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And you're also, as I mentioned at the start, you're also an angel investor. What I've actually heard that term before. What is an angel investor, and what do you look for when you're investing in people and a business?
Sure. So angel investor is a person, usually somebody who's either run a business before or has inherited some wealth, but has got a pot of money that they're happy to invest into small and startup companies. In exchange for equity in those companies, hoping for a return on exit or some kind of liquidity event. And what I look for when I invest in startups, firstly, I think I've only invested up till now in startups that have kind of come through my trusted network. So I get a lot of people approaching me, called on LinkedIn, etc. But I kind of rarely really look at those pitch decks and at those messages, because I know nothing about this company. Nobody's really kind of vetting it. Nobody's pre-screened it. So firstly, it needs to come from my network. Secondly, there needs to be a strong founding team. So I need to really see that people who are on the founding team have the experience in the given industry, that they are the kinds of people who can execute, who can make stuff happen, basically. So usually I would have a relationship with them over a few months or even years before I invest, to kind of see how they operate. And I also look for traction. So I have invested in businesses who haven't made money yet at that point. But as I said, they had a very strong awareness of what problems their audience had, how to solve those problems. They had like a very, very good understanding of their future client base. So I would say that the founding team and traction are top two for me.
I know, again, going back to the burlesque, I know you mentioned in the book that it helped you become a better leader. How did that influence your leadership skills?
Yeah, so it just, again, coming back to that idea of the integration of the feminine and masculine side. So in short, the being and the doing. Being a dancer has really kind of taught me to, for example, tune into the moment and the chemistry between me and the audience, because what will happen quite often, it's a little bit like stand-up comedy, is that depending on how your audience reacts, you might change something slightly in the act, or you might kind of introduce another joke or whatever else. So that helped me understand that in the business context, it's all about the kind of the chemistry between me and whoever I'm doing business with as well. And it's about me being able to tune into my needs, their needs, where's the common ground, how can I really help them, or how can I be of value to them. So yeah, that would be just one example, that kind of tuning into that chemistry that's there between the performer and the audience, or me and somebody I'm dealing with in the business context.
Yeah, so you build up that kind of rapport kind of thing. So
yeah,
I think that's,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Tune in the energy, like what's there that's maybe unsaid, but it's on the table. It's there anyway, being able to understand that.
Yeah, because I think good leadership is in very short supply these days. Do you find that with a lot of companies that when you come across, is there often sometimes a lot of poor leadership going on, or is it not as, or is it kind of 50-50?
Yeah, good question. I find that a lot of founders are not the best team leaders. They're great at working on their own, and they're great so-called technicians, so they can they know how to solve the problem that their clients are having, but they're not as good as scaling businesses as they are at starting them. So yeah, I think it's like I haven't met that many leaders that had that both kind of feminine and masculine side really integrated, and that really were master at both sides.
Yeah. Obviously, the you have to flick on the news or go on the internet to see what's happening at the moment with the whole pandemic, and it's obviously, as I think everyone's aware now, it's fairly changed how we work and how we look at work. I think a lot of the issues in the past few months has been pretty much the government's wanting people to go back into the office, but there's a lot of resistance. I think there's even some high level court cases where
Mm.
people are fighting their work so they could have a 50-50 policy, work at home and work in the actual office. Um, how do you see the workplace changing? And how what's your work environment like in your company? Because I know you talk about that in your book as well.
Yeah, so it's a really kind of open and trustful working environment. We treat people as adults, and we trust them with important decisions, even concerning their own salary. So people set salaries in my company, and all the financial information is transparent, which helps us avoid politics, because typically in hierarchical companies, you have people that have more information and people that have less information, and that kind of creates imbalance and like breeds a lot of political games. So my company is quite unique in the way that it's built and structured. We run a system called holacracy, which is an alternative to traditional hierarchy. And it's a system that a governance and operational system that helps you distribute power. So as opposed to the power being just in the hands of the founder or the owner, and then kind of some key figures at the top, it's distributed, and there are self-managing teams that kind of resolve their own problems and issues. And it helps us get people to really participate in how the company is being run.
Yeah.
And have take more ownership of their job and what they actually do. So yeah, so it's quite a unique company, I have to say. I'm quite proud
Yeah.
of the way we've built it.
Because that's like and having it that way, everyone has a stake. Everyone feels like they have a slice of the pie, and they have a
Yeah.
vested interest. They feel, well, if, if I work, the company's going to do really well. My colleagues are going to do really well. There's a lot of jobs really. It's kind of like that's where you're going to be working. You need to do X, Y, and Z, and get on with it. And that's
Yeah.
you feel like what's the point in my job? What is it doing? Um, can you see workplaces changing? Do you think the changes that we've seen in the past 2 years now, nearly 2 years now, can you see those changes becoming permanent, or do you think we're in the cusp of a new era in how we live and work?
Yes, I think we are on the cusp of a new era, and I think that there is more of this kind of leadership of the future and workplaces of the future. I actually talk at a lot of conferences these days about the workplace of the future and what it entails and how I see that. I think that we're going to have much more kind of autonomous teams and workplaces that really value people, that really allow them to be heard and to be seen as individuals that they are, as whole human beings, as opposed to just a function or an aspect of who you are. And I also know, having recruited quite a lot of young people, that the Gen Z generation is really focused on having a perfect working environment to work in, other than just, what's the highest salary I can get. They really care about their working conditions. So I think that more and more companies will realize that and will kind of adapt some of these practices so that they can create better cultures and more wholesome workplaces that don't care just about profitability and shareholder value, but also about wholesomeness, humanity, the well-being of the people that work there, and creating a wider social impact in their communities.
Yeah, because um, I think I think things should change. I mean, I I think in a better, more healthier work environment would make a big difference. I mean, I've heard things recently, and they sound benign and kind of almost like people go irrelevant, but they're not. I think there were studies done, even like having a lot of plants in your working environment. Those sounds quite silly, but apparently that can have a major psychological boost for people, especially working in a
Yeah.
big city. And they're even, I think I've even heard them contemplating like a 30-minute sunshine break. So obviously in like the current environment, you can get out or work outside. But if you have a open rooftop, it's fit for
Yeah, we used to
one.
have a terrace, which was beautiful, and now we are in a co-working space, in a kind of like service office space, which has a terrace as well. I think it's so
Excellent.
important to just go
Yeah,
outside, get some
get
fresh
some
air.
fresh air, sunshine. Yeah,
Absolutely, and we also have like flexible working, so we don't really care where people work from, and even the hours they do, as long as they meet their obligations and responsibilities. Which is really important for some of people in our company are parents. That's really, that flexibility is really important to them. Some people have worked while traveling, and that's also really important to them to have that freedom. So I think, empower your people as much as you can to make their own choices about how, when, where from they work, and how to kind of manage the day and their energy levels, and then they'll kind of give you the best of themselves.
yeah, no, 100%. And I think even I'm on watching this, in everyone's own unique working experience or lifetime. We all know that when you had a really good boss, you worked a lot harder for them compared to the boss
Absolutely.
that treat you like a piece of dirt or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, you talk about basically being able to follow your true path. How how can people do that? How can people find their true path? Um, and what impact can that obviously have on on their life?
Yeah. So I kind of say to people to really find what their soul is calling them to do. And sometimes it's a bit of a process of unveiling that. But what really helps is to be guided by your enjoyment and excitement that you're feeling while you're doing that thing or something related. And also to remember what you used to do as a kid and really enjoy it. What would you do if, even if you weren't paid to do it, just because you love it or enjoy it? And if there is no easy or simple way to make money doing this thing, make sure that at least part of your time, part of your day, ideally every day, is kind of reserved for doing that which fulfills you and which really gives you that joy, because that's what will fuel you and nourish and nurture you to be able to give your best at work. And if possible, you can, a lot of people actually make money from their passions, from things that they're passionate about. And that's beautiful. And yeah, I really, ideally, I would love to live in a world where people, come to work not to make money, but because it's an expression of their true passion and interest.
Yeah, no, no, definitely. We're coming near the end. I know you're very busy, and I appreciate your time. Um, what what's uh what's next for yourself? Would you do another? Would you be writing a follow-up book? Or are you still doing the burlesque dancing, or is that stopped?
I actually have put it on hold for a while because it felt like it kind of came to its natural conclusion, and I had other interests like tango dancing, for example, and fitness. I spent a lot of the time in the gym, so I felt like, I wanted to do some other things in my life. But now that I've been, now that I've been writing about it, and I've just booked dancers for my launch party next week in London, and I just felt like, oh my God, this used to be so much fun. So I may well be doing another course and creating another act. Watch this space.
Excellent. Um, I always ask my guests this, and sometimes I don't aim to catch people out. It's I think sometimes the question throws people. Um, what's your mission statement? If you had to write that down.
At the moment, because I think it changes at different times in life, it's different. It's to be really in touch with my authentic desire and to follow it as much as I possibly can, because I can only do good in the world if I do that. If it's my real authentic desire to do something.
Excellent. No, thank you. How can people get in touch with Grandtree, or get in touch with yourself? And also, how can they purchase the book?
Yes, of course. So I am at Paulina Tenner, Tenner, on all social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, Clubhouse, Instagram. And you can also get in touch. Probably if you want to get in touch with Grandtree, you can either go via me or you can email team@grandtree, that's TTE.co.uk, and book a free funding consultation, grant funding consultation. And I would love to hear what you think about my new book. It's paulinatenner.com/book. And if you happen to be in London or anywhere close, if you pre-order my book, you get a free entry into my launch party, which is going to be at a strip club next Thursday. Loads of fun, burlesque performers, pole dancers. Yeah, I can't wait.
Excellent. Paulina, thank you very much for your time. I'm glad we actually got round to chat with you, because we had the 43 issues on my end. We had to reschedule, but I really appreciate your time today, and good luck for the launch party for the book, and best wishes with that.
Thank you. Thanks, Jonathan. It's been a pleasure.